Hi everyone, this video is a review of the beginning string lesson number 5, and this is one of my favorite lessons of the whole beginning string year because this is when students really get to start working on playing a full piece of music. We did not do something in the lesson book this week. Instead, every student received a piece of sheet music that looks something like this. Slightly different depending on what instrument they play, but this is a piece called the Peru Boogie, and it's something that I wrote several years ago to get kids playing and to get them playing something a little bit longer than the one-line exercises that are in the lesson book. And so this piece has some challenges to it, but like I said, it's always my favorite lesson, and typically when I ask students what their favorite thing was that we did during the year, they say this as well. So really excited to get started on this. This is something we normally spend 2 weeks on. So last week we introduced it. This week we're going to continue working on it in class. And so if you take a look at your music, and by the way, if you don't have a copy, I will send out PDFs in an email to everyone. But if you take a look at the music, you'll notice right off the bat that there are some things that are very new to us. And the biggest thing that you're probably noticing is that the notes are not labeled like they are in the lesson book. And I've been talking about this for a while, that actually from the first lesson, saying that notes traditionally are not labeled. The lesson book was very nice by labeling them for us, but eventually we're going to have to learn to read them without them being labeled. So this is a great transition into that because, as you can see, a lot of the notes are repeated, and so you get practice reading the same note over and over again. And also you can use the book as a reference. So if you open up to pages 6 and 7 in the lesson book, that has the labeled notes. With the exception of one note that's in this piece, everything is on those 2 pages. So you can look and compare what they look like and say, oh, this note's on the 3rd line or it's on the 1st line, and find that in your book. And that's going to help you with being able to read these notes in the Peru Boogie. The other thing is this piece actually has 3 different types of rests. Remember, a rest is when you don't play, and up until this point, we have just used this rest, which is a 1-beat rest. Peru Boogie has 2 other types of rest. First, we have a half rest, which is a 2-beat rest, and then the whole rest, which is a 4-beat rest. If you look at the beginning of this piece, the first 2 measures have 2 whole rests. So you're going to rest for a total of 8 beats at the beginning. And when we practiced this in class, I showed you exactly why you rest for 8 beats. It seems kind of weird to not play for 8 beats of the piece, especially at the beginning. But there is an introduction that I normally play on the piano when we play this together. And so there's 8 beats of rest at the beginning. And after you rest for 8 beats, then we're going to look at our first note. And again, if you need to compare and look in the lesson book, you can find what that note is. Many students, though, after just 10 or 15 minutes of working on this piece, were able to identify that that note is D. It's your open D string. And if you count, there are 5 Ds in a row. And so we've been working on having a beautiful bow hold, playing with our bow. So you should be able to put your instrument up, put your bow in the sweet spot, and we should be able to play 5 Ds pretty easily, just moving our bow back and forth 5 times, and that's going to get us those 5 Ds. So let's try that. So ready, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. Then we see the other 2 types of rest. There's a quarter rest and a half rest. 1 plus 2 is 3. So you're going to go rest, rest, rest. After those 3 beats of rest, this should look very familiar. You're going to play 5 more Ds like this. After that, there's 3 more beats of rest, and your next note is different. You can find this on pages 6 and 7. That note is G. You can see that we play 5 Gs. Now, if you're a bass player, that's very easy because G is an open string. But for everyone else, G is one of the hardest notes that we have learned so far. And you'll notice you have 3 beats of rest before you have to play the G. And so that is your chance to put your fingers down. 3 if you're a violin and viola, 4 if you are a cello. So let's find that G. Put your fingers down for G, and we'll play 5 Gs together. So here we go. Good, and then another 3 beats of rest. And the last note on this line, you see you have 5 notes, and this time it is an F sharp. So violins and violas and cellos, all you need to do is take 1 finger off. The difference between G and F sharp is just one finger. You can take that finger off. Bass, this is where it's a little tough for you. Now you have to add all of your fingers for that F sharp, 4 fingers on the D string. So let's play the 5 F sharps. So 1, 2, here we go. 3, 4, 5. Awesome. That brings us to the end of the first line. So we've already gotten through one line of music. Moving down to the second line, we now have, instead of a group of 5 notes, you see it's just 3 notes, 3 of the same note. It's a note we have not played yet. That note is E, and I love the note E because every single instrument plays it the same way. 1 finger on the D string. So let's put 1 finger on the D string, and we'll play 3 E's. Here we go. Just 1 beat of rest, then 3 D's, 1 beat of rest, and then 5 D's. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the first half of the Peru Blue Boogie. You can see then there's several beats of rest, and there's a little interlude very similar to the introduction, so that students get a little bit of a break, because this is 3 lines of music. This is the first time they've played this much, so it's nice to have a break in the middle. But I want to play from the beginning up to where I just stopped, so you can see the flow of how this goes with the rests and with putting your fingers down. I'd encourage you at home to play with me so you can see how this goes. We're going to skip the 8 beats of rest at the beginning. So we're going to get ready to start with the 5 D's. So ready, and here we go. 4, 5, rest, rest, more D's. And get ready for G, here we go. Now to F sharp. Down to 3 E's. 3 D's. And 5 D's. Awesome. So now, that first half, that's a great thing to practice first. Before you move on, make sure you have the first half down, that you kind of have that mastered before you move on. Because you're going to see that as you move on, the next part, the second half, is almost identical to the first half. So by practicing the first half, you're really practicing the second half too. If you follow along with me, I'm starting halfway through the second line where you have the 5 D's. So you have D, 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 and 3 rests. Then D, 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 3 rests. Down to the third line, here's our G's. G, 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 3 rests. This is all the same so far. F, 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 3 rests. Then we have E, 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 D, D, D. This is where it's different. So the last 2 measures, the 2 measures before the end. First, you have a D, and it's by itself. It's just 1 D with 3 beats of rest after it. That should be pretty easy. D, rest, rest, rest. And then the last measure is where we have a note that is not on pages 6 and 7, but it's a note that all of you except the bass players have played before. It's your open A string. Now basses, it's different for you because it's not open A. For you, it's a note we have not learned. It's high A, 1 finger on the G string. But I know you can play it, even though we haven't learned it yet. It's the exact same thing you would do for the note E, but you're going to do it over on the G string. Okay? So this is what the last 2 measures will sound like. D, rest, rest, rest. And a lot of students comment on the fact that that's the only time that you're off the D string for the entire piece, unless you're a bass player. It's different for bass. But during those 3 beats of rest, you should focus on moving your bow over to the A string, because that's something you have not had to do yet. Move your bow over. So that's something that is an extra challenge about this piece. Now there's an A string note if you're a violin, viola, or cello. Okay? So that's all the way through the Peru Blue Boogie. I want to play the whole thing from start to finish so that you can have a chance to play along with me. Again, I'm going to cut out the introduction, and when we get to that middle part, I'll probably skip ahead and count us in a little bit sooner as well. So we're going to start from the 5 D's. Get that instrument up, beautiful bow hold. We're going to put the bow in the sweet spot and have our fingers ready to put down when it's time to play those notes. So here we go. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's more D's. Getting ready for the note G. Now to F sharp. Going to the second line, E's. 3 D's. 5 D's. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Here's where we come in again with the D's. Ready? And here we go. Rest, rest, rest. Third line, G's. Down to F sharp. Here we go. Down to 3 E's. 3 D's. Now D over to A and good. So that's all the way through the Peru Blue Boogie. Again, lots of important skills in these 3 lines of music, not just reading through that much music, which is a big deal for it only being your 5th lesson, but also reading notes that do not have the notes marked in them. So actually reading real music, playing with a bow with a beautiful bow hold, staying in the sweet spot, practicing all 5 notes that we should be comfortable with at this point as a string player. And so I was really impressed with how students caught on to this in our first lesson, and like I said, we're going to do this again this week in our lesson. The other thing that I shared with students, and I'll include a little link when I send the video, is that there is a play-along track to this on my YouTube channel. So you can type in Peru Blue Boogie. There's a few performances of past beginning string groups. They actually normally, every winter concert, the beginning string group will perform this. I hope we'll get a chance to perform this later this year. But there's a play-along. It's just an audio track. And it goes really fast. It goes a lot faster than what I just played, but you can slow the speed down. If you click the little gear button on the YouTube video, you can actually put it down to 0.75 to 3/4 of the speed, and that will make it a it's much closer to the tempo that I just played, and most students should be able to play along with that. It's kind of fun to get to play along and have some extra instruments accompanying you in the background, so that's kind of a fun thing to do with this piece, so I'll share that video with you as well. So keep working hard on this, and we will practice this again in our next lesson, and I'll see you then.